Smooth 981 FM, Lagos. And so let's begin picking up the pace of the papers this morning. Mr. C, good morning to you.
Morning, Ash. Good morning, Zibby. Good morning, AB. Good morning, Lagos.
And good morning, AB Bozimo.
Good morning. It's great to be here. Have a great week ahead, Mr. C, Zibby, Omats, and all of the wonderful listeners.
All right, thank you. Let's start off with this headline coming from Daily Trust. Petrol scarcity worsens nationwide.
Thank you. So, last week, certain parts of the country, especially in northern Nigeria and some states in the southern part of Nigeria, were experiencing shortages of fuel supply, petrol supply. And at a point in time, the NNPC did address Nigerians through a press statement, and it's insisted that what was being experienced was not a scarcity of petrol, but rather a logistics issue. Fast forward a few days, now it's spread to other parts of the country, and it is now clear that that initial statement was not entirely accurate or was not entirely factful. Now, the truth of the matter now is it's becoming more pronounced and more intense, especially as it's now hit the commercial capital of the country, which is Lagos. Now, incidentally, this morning I saw huge queues in a few of the stations I drove past. Now, the question is this: how are we still here talking about fuel scarcity 64 years after gaining independence? We're not a country that needs to import. We shouldn't be importing petrol because we have crude oil in large amounts. Now, it also begs the question: we've been told repeatedly the Port Harcourt refinery would be ready, will come on stream, we'll start seeing petrol. We're literally entering the month of May. There's no sign, no indication of when that refinery is coming, or when any of the two refineries are coming on stream. We were told the refinery in Lekki, oh, it's going to come on once it comes on board, once it comes on stream, Nigeria's fuel demands on a daily basis will fully be met. Now, what we've seen is that the refinery in Lekki is producing AGO, jet fuel, and the like, but it's not producing petrol. So the bigger question is this: NNPC, stop issuing statements that are big on English and very low on facts. What is the real problem here? It cannot be a logistics issue. And what do you mean by a logistics issue? Is it that there are no diesel tankers or diesel trucks to truck the product from the depots to the various states where they can be offloaded, or to the various tank farms where they can be unloaded? Two, the NNPC for a while now has been largely the major sole importer of petrol. When was the last time we imported petrol? What was the quantity? Has that quantity been exhausted? When do they plan to import petrol next? Do we have shipments or cargoes on the high seas waiting to berth here and discharge their load? So there are many, many questions, and we noticed that in some places the price of petrol has gone up to about 6.17 per liter. Now, on the black market, which is truly tragic, petrol is being sold for as high as 2,000 naira per liter. I saw a spectacle this morning and it broke my heart. There was a mother on a school run. Children were in the car and she literally had to stop and buy black market petrol. And it broke my heart because there are people whose jobs, whose responsibilities are to ensure that petrol flows seamlessly throughout the country. Clearly, they're not doing their jobs. Nobody's going to say anything. Nobody's going to be sanctioned. And then we just continue business as usual. This is truly sad. It is truly regrettable. And I do hope sincerely that the NNPC addresses this without any further delays.
Thank you, Mr. C. AB, let's talk about this headline that came from a few days ago, and it has to do with the petrol tanker explosion that happened in Port Harcourt.
Speaking of logistics, first to answer the question posed by Mr. C, why is this a problem? Because of gross negligence, manifest incompetence, and lack of consequence. That is why, after 64 odd years, we're still waking up to these kind of situations. A few days ago, at a major coincidental, logistics facility and hub here in River State, a tanker trying to pass some of that stationary vehicle. The actual cause isn't yet determined, but a huge conflagration broke out. Tens of vehicles were burned. Tens of people were killed. Others have been injured. And the loss is unbelievable. People may have seen it. First of all, that road leads to so many of Nigeria's treasures, leads to a port, it leads to some companies that do logistics and all that, oil-based, we're supposed to be an oil-producing country. It has never made sense to me how we neglect these facilities that are supposed to be part of the oil and gas infrastructure in Nigeria. So this happens. Most Nigerians are not insured. People's lives have been dramatically destroyed permanently. I really don't know how many people are going to come back from it. And this not including those who have died. That one is the final permanence. So we are talking about logistics. NNPC put out something, logistics. What efforts do they make? First of all, logistics is such a broad term. It's same as saying absolutely nothing. Is it the trucks? Is it the tankers? Is it the pipelines? Is it the roads? Is it the people? Is it the drivers? Is it the salaries? Logistics means nothing, meaning NNPC has said absolutely nothing, meaning, in my opinion, that they themselves don't even know why there is no fuel. Because this country is a 64-year-old near grandpa. It is not a bag of new tricks. Supplying fuel to every part of the country should not be magic, brand new day. Every day we're doing something new. We have no excuses for this, but I just like us to understand that human beings' lives are affected every day when we neglect facilities. I understand the road was being done, but I wager that part of the road contract, which should include traffic management, was not being done. On the other side, I also have to point fingers of blame at road users and drivers. All too often, we, the people, are a part of the problem. And you know the people I also point at? The Nigeria police that set up pointless checkpoints and cause increasing pain and difficulty for people in these tough times. So the blame goes around, but the point is people's lives have been lost because facilities are neglected. And that could be part of the logistics issue, not because of the fuel shortage in Sokoto, but because of manifest lack of competence and consequence.
All right, I guess maybe. So let's get to the Guardian newspaper, which in addition to that, which it says President Tinubu secures $600 million from MAS to expand ports infrastructure. And talk to us about how this would improve the ports operation.
On the surface of it, this is a good sounding story. But when I read it, I shook my head because $600 million, a country's president goes far afield, are begging, are borrowing for $600 million. Does that indicate that as a country you are serious? $600 million is less than the cost of some of the world's most expensive houses. So we are looking for house money around the world as a president. And I'm seeing a headline telling me that we got it and we are going to use it to. So you mean within Nigeria's resources, we could not marshal $600 million and more to fix our own ports, the ports that would give us economic benefits? We have to go and beg and borrow, or I don't know whether it's a grant, whatever it is. We need to source it externally. I think we should be ashamed of ourselves that we cannot raise within. And when you now contrast it with other things that we actually focus on, that we prioritize, $600 million at 1,300 is 780 billion or so. Somebody will do the math for me. I haven't really thought about it, but because these numbers sometimes boggle my mind. But whatever we have used 780 million or billion to do, instead of doing our ports, we have to ask ourselves the question, why are we prioritizing? The second part of the story that was interesting was that the president was speaking with the head of Samsung, chief executive officer of Samsung. Now, Samsung is willing and ready to do business in Nigeria, and the president was telling, look, we're ready and willing and able to accommodate you. Think about it. Samsung is a private company in a country, South Korea, where their government created the conditions that have made Samsung a worldwide entity that has taken on and beaten companies like Apple in sales of devices. Why is our president not thinking of creating the same chaebols, as they're called, in Nigeria that can take on Nigeria, take on Africa, and take on the world? So yes, let's welcome Samsung, but that again is not creating the capacity within. If it's part of a long-term strategy to have some technology transfer, I'm okay with it. But ask yourself a question, President Tinubu, why is Samsung successful in South Korea? And then take lessons from that and make Nigerian companies successful in Nigeria so that they can also sell to South Korea one day pretty soon.
So, AB, before we let the story rest, let's look at Mask, who they are in terms of shipping and their major stakeholders. And here are the ones people will talk about the need for PPP, private partnerships. So you might also want to say this is also might also be falling in line in that direction, not as just coming as a loan.
Listen, 600, are you talking about the $600 million
Yes.
PPP?
Yes.
Fine.
The source it's coming from.
I
They have
have
major players in the ports.
Maersk is a major port player. Nigeria is a major player in our ports. I'm not against input from any and everywhere. I'm saying, does it take us traveling around the world for days on end with, in fact, I heard that two of our presidential jets are spoiled. So our president entered first class somewhere in a public, not public, but in a commercial jet. We can't maintain our jets. Yeah, we're flying all over the world. I'm begging for $600 million. Does that picture look normal to you?
Okay, let me quickly jump in on this, right? It's clear knowledge and it's clear wisdom that there are no free lunches in life. Now, we're hearing that Maersk has agreed to invest $600 million in Nigerian ports infrastructure. What are the terms of this investment? What is the underlying framework? What does Maersk get out of this arrangement? There's very little being said about it. Are they given a 50-year concession? Are they being given a 100-year concession? At what rates? How does that help the local shipping industry develop? It's complete radio silence and crickets on these details. So again, the question is, can the government provide more details as to all these arrangements? Because it's simply not clear the basis upon which these investments are being given.
All right, let's look at some of the messages that we have coming through.
Well, let's go over and see what Adoption says here. It says, well, it goes on to say, is being economical with the truth. It's easy to make excuses. What do they mean by supply glitch? Same way during elections, we are technical glitch. I believe it's all deliberate. What were they doing that has changed that caused supply glitch? That's all Adoption said here. Then Tinu comes up with a message here saying, imagine still saying that NNPC is importing fuel in 2024. That's a freaking shame. Disgraceful. All stakeholders in this chain should be ashamed of themselves. Then Peter comes up with a message from Festac saying, it's truly a sad state for us as a nation. At 64, we still do not have functioning refineries. Politicians are busy looting public funds. EFCC in romance with politicians. The judiciary in bed allegedly with politicians. Last time, bad fuel was imported and no consequences for the bad fuel. Today, many political kleptocrats, aided by same few greedy sycophants, shame on these old politicians. Then I've got Tajuddin from Alimoshon saying, well, you cannot shame the shameless and indolent. These are the kind of fellows we have in government at present.
All right, you're still listening to Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1. Please keep the messages coming. Have one headline.
Smooth 98.1. You are an orchestra. Watching you move, it's like listening to a symphony of body parts directed by a maestro. When you walk, it is like watching a G clef stroll across an octave accented by a C sharp. When you talk, The cadence of your voice is a tenor saxophone, making love to a cello at perfect pitch. And you are so smooth. That's why we keep it here on 98.1. This is Justin Egypt signing. This is Johnny Drill, and you're listening to this.
It's still freshly pressed and smooth, 98.1 FM. Still picking up the local headlines and got Mr. C here and AB Bozimo as we get into the papers. We've got you also sending your reactions to the headlines this morning. Keep the headlines up, your reactions coming to 0809 4440981. Then, of course, you can go to youtube.com/smooth 981 FM Lagos to subscribe to the YouTube channel and you can see this all over again and then leave a message there.
All right, next headline comes from Punch. Lagos to review land grabbing law.
Thank you, Zibby. So over the weekend, Lagos State announced plans to review the land grabbing law amongst other legislation it has passed. And this was disclosed when the Lagos House of Assembly Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Public Petitions met with a few agencies, including the Agency Against Land Grabbing. Now, as part of that conversation, it was revealed that 7,500 petitions had been received in respect of the activities of land grabbers in Lagos State. And the head of that agency, of the Special Task Force, did say that it had become imperative that the law on land grabbing be amended and reviewed to reflect the current realities. And I'm totally in support of that, because if you've ever had to fall victim to the antics and the activities of these guys, it can leave a very painful memory in your psyche, because they throw the law out of the window, and they literally take over your land without any compensation. And sometimes they're aided seemingly by rogue members of the Nigeria Police Force. So this is a welcome development. But beyond this, the Lagos State government, in all honesty, cannot say that it doesn't know the prominent land grabbers. If you truly want this phenomenon to end, you have to educate the people and let them know that once they've sold their land and they've received due consideration for that sale, then all ties to that land end. So it goes beyond land grabbing. This phenomenon or this nonsense of omonile has to stop, because it's inconceivable that they will sell land, then tell you they're sons of the land, and whenever you're building at whatever stage, they show up and demand for monies they're not entitled to. And it is that sort of impunity that has fueled land grabbing, because they move from there and they're like, you know what, we'll take over your property, chase you out of the place and resell it. Meanwhile, they have no legal title to the property. So yes, this is a welcome development. And in other news, the Domestic and Sexual Violence Agency was also visited. Now, kudos to this agency. They've done a very, very good job. And they've ensured that people who have committed sexual and domestic offenses against other individuals have been duly prosecuted. And Lagos State is one of the few states in the country that has a sexual offenders register. And upon conviction, your name is entered into that register. So kudos to Lagos State government. And I truly hope that other states will take some sort of encouragement for what Lagos State is doing and also enact similar laws and arrangements.
All right, we'll proceed now to AB. AB, you've got a double portion right now, which you would help us do a link up across the stories eventually now. So let's first begin with the Guardian newspaper, where it's talk about floods. Lagos Assembly tasked Sanwo-Olu on dredging of drainage channel, and then also with help us stitch it together with the Punch newspaper, where the lawmakers proposes a clampdown on illegal dump site. It's over to you.
Having been a victim of Lagos flooding, I speak from a point of deep pain, personal experience. You know, as much as the assembly is tasking the governor, I have a question to ask. Why does it always seem that floods in Lagos take us by surprise, quote unquote? Because all this seems to be coming up because there was heavy rain at the weekend and people's properties were affected. Most Nigerians have complained for the past few weeks, months that, oh, the heat is so much, meaning there have been very, very many dry, hot days. What were we doing during all these past few hot days? Now we're tending towards the rainy season and indeed this flood season. Floods happen for a variety of reasons. One of them highlighted in these stories is poor urban planning, connected with land grabbing and just disdain for rules and regulations. People build, they don't leave space for drainage, they come up against canals. Then there's human behavior. Nothing in my personal life is more abhorrent than seeing maybe a car in front of me, the windows wound down, somebody tosses out something and they keep going. First of all, the driver should be cited. The person in the vehicle who did it should be cited, because I think most jurisdictions have this little bowl, this little bucket in a vehicle for you to throw trash in. If it's a private vehicle, you should be sent to a psychiatric home to sit down for like 2 weeks and think about your sanity. Then there is enforcement. You say a house was built at the canal. Houses don't spring up with the snap of a finger. You excavate. In fact, you pile materials, then you excavate, then you install, then you build. How do these buildings appear like magic at the bank of a river or a canal and prevent water from flowing? So there's enforcement that is not being done. But ultimately, human behavior. Have you noticed that in every movie, at least that we watch, you don't just see piles of rubbish on the streets when the two bad guys are shooting each other and jumping across in a car chase? The streets are clean because there are typically disposal bins at strategic locations. And of course, consequences. If you just happen to cross the street wrong or throw a banana peel on the road, you can be cited. But even the citing, you need an identity system, because if this young guy who has no identity does something and it disappears into the wind, how do I call him? So it's a big thing. But at the end of the day, flooding in certain instances is preventable. Then the worst effects are also possible to minimize if everybody does their role properly. Water ordinarily is essential for life. We're not saying, after all, we all saw Dubai the other day flooded. Many Western capitals have flooded. No one is saying it's unique. But I'm saying, hey, let's be unique as the one coastal capital, former capital, with that the Venice of Africa, that doesn't flood unreasonably. Let us have the unique distinction of setting the example. And it will come from the governor, the lawmakers, and most importantly, the people. Provide waste disposal. Don't let them overflow. When it's getting, have a schedule. When people throw things in them, also add recycling. We talked about recycling on this show. You don't always have to throw those things away. Get them into places where they can actually bring wealth to other people. There are many ways to attack flooding, but there's no excuse for it to always look like, oh, the rains have started. House of Assembly, governor, do something. What were they at Christmas? Were they sharing goats or cows? They should have been passing those laws then in the height of the dry season, so that now wouldn't be being flooded out of our homes and offices.
Okay, so let me quickly jump in on this. Whilst AB is completely correct, it will be fair. Let's be fair to Lagos State government, especially the Commissioner for Environment. He's been very proactive in ensuring that illegal structures, unnatural drainage path or canal passages have been removed. And he's also been making efforts, strenuous efforts around the states to ensure that impediments to flooding are removed. So yes, Lagos State government isn't perfect, but at the same time, they have reasonably done some work in trying to ensure that the effects and the incidences of flooding are minimized this year.
So let's race down to the messages we've got waiting already. Anthony Francis from Marine Beach says, is it not the same process that brings out the AGO and the jet that brings out the PMS? Where is the PMS that comes out in between these two products? Is the jet aviation fuel not lighter than PMS? Can the cracking process keep the PMS and produce jet A? By the way, why did the Port Harcourt refinery that is being celebrated since December not start production still coming up? We cannot be fooled in the 21st century. They should keep taking the citizens for granted until cry soon. That's what Tony from Marine Beach has to say. And then I find about Bass's message waiting. Well, it goes on, said US dollars from Mask. It says, so if the analyst has someone who wants to give him some money for something he needs, he will not accept it because he's supposed to get it from his own personal business. This is beautiful. And then comes in Cisco Delgado's message and says, Nigeria doesn't need any courtesy in terms of economic development. We need to be like the Chinese in order to grow economically. That's all Cisco Delgado will tell us this morning. And I've got Fabian from Ekpe saying, well, Samsung is successful in their country and Huawei in China. The government should create a more enabling environment for IT organizations and people who are living in their droves and encourage private businesses to thrive. We're tired of the handout. That's what Fabian is saying. And Tajuddin is all up for both of you, Mr. C and AB, supporting you for 2027. Mr. C and AB and people like of like minds, please come together and be involved in government. I will dedicate myself to your service. The crop of people we have in government are bereft of ideas to take this country forward. So, Mr. C, AB, there's no hiding place for the goldfish any longer.
All right, let's look at the last headline, and this is coming from The Nation. Lagos Calabar Coastal Highway, federal government begins property demolition, alleged fears.
Yes, that's the story that's been in the news. There are various properties that will be affected. There was a right of way originally, and there's some adjustments. It seems as if the government is doing everything possible to minimize the ultimate impact of that road. The Minister of Works has been on various media engagement to explain various things. It has also been a source of political brickbats back and forth. At the end of the day, there are potential benefits. But while we're considering that, it would be great to have similar effort done on the East-West Road, which is literally parallel to that, going to pretty much the same places. I drive on that road regularly. The work going on there is excruciatingly slow. So it's interesting at best to me that we're starting this new road, no problem with it, but Haba, finish the one you're already on. Because the rains have come and met us now, and that road is going to be impassable this season. So, they're just telling us that they're going to minimize the effect and impact of the demolitions. It's a process. There's going to be engagement. There's going to be prompt refunds. What's the word? Compensation paid to people. Some people will have to sacrifice, definitely. But if you were out of the right of way in the first place, you should have no issues. There was a right of way. This goes back to this whole indiscriminate development. Yes, Mr. C said it. The Commissioner for Environment is doing a great job removing structures. I am saying, why were the structures there in the first place so that they now have to be removed? They didn't just appear. This is not a fairy tale. You don't wave a wand and build a building. It's a process. So I'm happy that the Commission is doing the work, but those who were in office when these things were there, they have questions to answer. And no, I would not take money that I have in my possession because there are never monies given to me with no strings attached. I don't need to borrow if I have. That's my answer to that comment.
So let me quickly jump into this Lagos stuff. Now, for me, I find it a bit positive. The environmental impact assessment has not been done. That's one. Now, a number of states are part of this project. There is no evidence, there are no facts publicly available to show that they have agreed to this project and they have ceded portions of their territory and made them available for this project. So what I foresee is this project will stop in Lagos and there will be legal impediments to the completion of this project.
All right, looks like we'll leave the papers this morning and the headlines, but let's see a few messages we can throw in as we say a goodbye now. Let's see from Tonye, Lagos Metropolis saying, as long as the government officials are so far removed from everyday pressures of the normal Nigerian, they will not be under any pressure to fix things. No government official has to queue or worry about their next liter of fuel is coming from, or where payment for their electricity is secured, etc., even where their children's school fees are being paid in advance, i.e., refunded, I guess, for some people now. But government appears to be a holiday retreat for some persons. But then moving on, JP says, well, NNPC needs to own up to a failure. You either are indebted to suppliers or there are no vessels, which I highly doubt. It's a shame. That's what he has to say. He has something about the land grabbers too. It says Lagos State enables land grabbing when a C of O takes a decade. What did they expect? Take much capital is tied down due to inability to provide title and punish land grabbers. Well, so then.
All right. Well, that's all the time that we have for Freshly Pressed this morning. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your messages. Unfortunately, we can't read them all, but thank you for sending them. And special thanks to our analysts for being here with us this morning, Mr. C and AB Bozimo.
Thank you. Pleasure is mine. Agree, disagree, hit me up at AB Bozimo on all platforms.
You stay with us. There's